We stood at the edge of Edivane Woods, that cursed forest. No one in town dared speak its name, but everyone whispered about the disappearances, the strange sightings. And yet, there we were. I remember the silence, the kind that presses on your ears, like the forest was listening to us before we even took the first step. The trees, those towering giants, rose like walls on either side, their branches twisted and reaching out, like they were waiting to grab us. The sky was heavy, the sun barely breaking through the thick, unnatural fog that clung to the forest floor. I could feel it. This place was wrong. We shouldn't have come. But something deep within the woods seemed to pull us forward, even though every instinct screamed to turn back. Evelyn, Mark, and I exchanged a glance. But we said nothing. We were too far in already. It felt like we'd been walking for hours. Yet the deeper we went, the more the forest seemed to stretch endlessly before us. And then we found it. The clearing. At the center of it stood a tree unlike any other. Its bark was black, charred, and cracked, like it had been struck by lightning countless times. It towered above us, gnarled branches clawing at the sky, and its roots sprawled out like the tentacles of some ancient beast. And beneath those roots, bones. At first glance, we tried to convince ourselves they were animal bones. Small, unassuming. But as we got closer, I could see it. Skulls, too round, too human. The wind picked up, swirling the dust and dead leaves, and that's when I felt it. The ground beneath my feet almost pulsed, like the tree was breathing. Watching us. Evelyn whispered, we should go. But none of us moved. We couldn't. The longer we stayed, the more the forest seemed to change. It was subtle at first. A shift in the air, a snap of a branch that made us jump. But nothing was there when we turned to look. Then Evelyn swore she saw something. Something just beyond the trees, a shadow, moving too fast, too silent. Her eyes were wide, terrified, and I'll never forget the way she whispered, "Did you see that?" But there was nothing, only the shadows, stretching, twisting, and they seemed to be watching us too. Every rustle of the leaves, every creak of the branches felt deliberate, as if the forest was alive, breathing, waiting for us to make a wrong move. And then came the cold. A bone-chilling gust of wind blew through the trees, but there was no breeze. It was the kind of cold that settled deep into your bones, making your skin crawl. We were being watched. I knew it. We all knew it. That's when we heard it. Faint at first, like the soft echo of a child's giggle. But there were no children here, just us. The laughter grew louder, more distinct, but it didn't come from one direction. It surrounded us, bouncing off the trees, coming from above, below, behind, everywhere. It was innocent, playful, but beneath it, there was something darker, a malice hidden behind that laughter, mocking us, pulling us deeper into the woods. We need to leave. Now. I heard the fear in my own voice, but it was too late. The forest had us. Every path we turned, the trees seemed to shift, closing in tighter. And that laughter, it wouldn't stop. It echoed in our ears, growing louder, sharper, until it felt like it was inside our heads, mocking. We were no longer alone. We ran, or at least we tried to. The trees seemed to move with us, blocking our way, twisting like some sick maze. I kept my eyes on Mark's back, hearing his ragged breaths just ahead. But then nothing. No footsteps. No sound. I turned. He was gone. Just gone. Vanished, as if the forest had swallowed him whole. There wasn't a scream, not a trace of him left. I shouted his name over and over, but the only answer was the wind, whistling through the branches. My heart pounded in my chest, every instinct screaming at me to run. But where? The forest was alive, and it had taken him. I barely had time to react before I felt it. The ground beneath us seemed to shift, and suddenly, Dominic screamed. Black twisted roots shot up from the earth like snakes, wrapping around his legs, dragging him back toward the blackened tree. I grabbed his hand, but the force pulling him was too strong. The tree, it was alive. Its bark split open with a sickening crack, revealing a mouth, jagged splintered teeth lining its hollow trunk. It was hungry. The forest was feeding. I don't know how long I ran, but when I finally stopped, he was there. Dominic. But not Dominic. His body was twisted, his skin pale, cracked like dried bark. His eyes, they were hollow, black, and his mouth stretched into an unnatural, grotesque smile. The forest had taken him. It had consumed him, and now he was its puppet. "Evelyn," he whispered, his voice cold, empty. "Stay." I stumbled back, my heart racing. Dominic's twisted form took slow, deliberate steps toward me, his smile frozen in that sickening grin. My mind screamed to run, but my legs wouldn't move. The forest had won. I could feel it, its eyes on me, the trees bending, whispering, laughing. The ground beneath me trembled as more roots broke through the soil, crawling toward my feet. "Stay," he whispered again, his voice an icy breath in the wind. I was going to die here, become part of the forest, like all the others. But then I saw it, the edge, the faint glow of the world outside the forest, just beyond the trees. I ran, the roots scraping at my ankles, Dominic's twisted laughter echoing behind me. I didn't stop, not until I broke through the tree line and collapsed onto the cold, hard ground, gasping for air. The forest, it let me go. But when I turned to look back, Dominic, no, that thing just stood there, watching from the shadows. And I knew Edivane Woods wasn't done feeding. If this story gave you chills, be sure to like this video and hit that subscribe button for more terrifying tales. Let us know in the comments, would you dare step foot in a forest like this? Stay tuned for the next spine-tingling story. And remember, sometimes the scariest places are closer than you think. See you in your nightmares. Eye Tree. The forest doesn't just feed on bodies. It devours souls. Edivane Woods has claimed many, and it will claim many more. Maybe it's still hungry. Maybe it's watching you. So, next time you find yourself near a dark forest, remember, some places were never meant for the living. The forest always feeds. Thus,